There's no easy way out. I just wanna know there's no easy way out. No easy way out. I'm not asking for another chance.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the No Easy Way Out podcast. My name is Tony Nash, and we are coming to you as always from the Woodworth Building in beautiful downtown Owasso, home to my company, AZ Business Solutions, where we help grow your brand from A to Z. So I'm joined today by some exciting guests. One face you've seen recently, because he just likes to be on camera, Mr. Garrett Soldano. But we're joined today by another special guest, Mr. Matt DePerno. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us.
It's good to have you guys here, and we're excited to talk to you guys about everything that's going on in your lives right now and in your world right now. So let's just get right into talking a little bit about the midterm elections. Obviously, we know we had some big elections here in the state of Michigan, and didn't kind of turn out the way we wanted, at least the way I wanted. Maybe some of you listening, maybe it did turn out the way you wanted. But I want to hear from these guys on your perspective on how the midterms went and what's your perspective on what went wrong in terms of the Republican Party.
Well, I mean, certainly the candidates. We did a lot of events. I think my campaign did over 500 events across the state this campaign season. We worked really hard. Our staff worked hard. We organized people across the state to get out, knock on doors, drop literature, pass out yard signs, and spread our conservative message. But in the end, really, in order to win elections, I think the message out of this midterm campaign is that we have to come together as a party. It's time to unite. We have too many factions who were fighting each other in the last election. We have to unite the grassroots with the establishment and the establishment with the grassroots. And to say anything different, I think, is kidding ourselves. Right. So the Wednesday after the election, it was very disappointing. I woke up after about 3 hours of sleep, put together our team, met with them at 7 in the morning and said, listen, didn't go the way we wanted it to go, but we're not done fighting for the state of Michigan and for the people. What's next? What are we going to do? How do we continue to push our conservative message? And that's when I decided that it's time to make a run for the Michigan State chairmanship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's when you're fighting for a cause, when it's not just for, a seat, but you're fighting for a cause, you realize that when we experience a setback, it's not time to throw in the towel and give up. It's time to keep fighting. You believe you have the right message. Obviously, you ran for attorney general. It was a close race by some accounts, and I think that obviously you fought as hard as anyone could have fought of. Same thing with Garrett. Garrett ran for governor. Both of you ran extremely active campaigns. Both of you were around the state multiple times, put thousands and thousands of miles on your vehicles, met with people individually, got to hear what they had to say, listened to the needs of the people. I know for me, being kind of behind the scenes and a lot of this stuff, felt like we really had a lot of momentum. We have the people behind us. It really felt that way. And of course, what we learned is that, the majority of the people in Michigan, at least the way the elections turned out, the results that came in showed that we didn't have the majority that we thought. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the right message. That doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to fight for those things. So I know a lot of the big thing was midterms. It's going to be, it's going to be a big red wave. Garrett would say red tsunamis, come and get your boat. And a lot of people are like, well, what happened to the red wave? Obviously, Trump endorsed a lot of candidates, including you, Matt, and a lot of the media is now saying that Trump was the big loser of the midterms. All of his candidates lost. Where if you look at the actual facts, 230 or something of Trump's,
over 90%.
Yeah, over 90% of his candidates won. I think there was 21 losses and 220 some wins.
And if you think about that, just to piggyback on what you just said, I come from a football background. If you're a head coach with that record, you're going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You literally are. And so the red tsunami, in my mind, it happened. Yeah. Now, was it the huge one, like a tidal wave? No. But if you look at all these races, especially at the local levels here in the state of Michigan, we won a lot of the seats at the school board. We won a lot of seats at the city council. And so the local elections, I really feel that we did have that red tsunami. And President Trump's endorsed candidates, he's, over 90%. And that's in the Hall of Fame as a coach.
Sure. Well, and I know that, and we've talked about this before, that a lot of the change really in the country happens at the local level. And so we did experience a lot of wins. And where we saw the losses were really in the big races, the statewide races that the media was talking about, the big battleground states that were really, in their perspective, difference makers in terms of the Congress, in terms of state, executive branch seats, attorney general, these types of things. And that's where they're saying that the Trump endorsement didn't help. And so, my perspective is there's still a lot of pockets in the country, these communities. We were just talking about this before. Our community here is a Christian community. I mean, it's not uncommon to see people pray before a meeting or even before a city hall meeting. We talked about that last night at our city hall meeting. So I think there's a lot of pockets of people that really are still pro-Trump. We need Trump to help us get these things, or at least pro-Trump's message. But then we saw in some of the big races where you took in the factor of the whole populace that maybe Trump is not as popular as he once was. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, first, you can't put the red wave on one person. You can't 100%. Put it all on Donald Trump.
Agreed.
But in my view, the red wave was there. It was there across the country. But you have to do something to bring it to the shores of Michigan.
Right.
And that's where we failed in Michigan. Candidates can get out there and work as hard as possible. We can get the endorsements of the national leaders. But ultimately, you need an organization behind you that raises money and gets out the vote. And that's what we did not have in this last election. That's why we didn't bring the red wave to Michigan. We didn't have a get out the vote program. We didn't have district offices set up in Michigan. Normally you have 13 district offices set up. Normally you have about 150 employees provided by either the RNC or Michigan GOP with call centers, get out the vote efforts. We didn't have this in this last election. We had, I think, 2 or 3 employees from RNC. We had no ballot chase program at all. That's where we failed in this last election. It was organization, it was leadership, and that's what Garrett and I are going to bring to the state of Michigan. Organization, leadership, and actually create from the ground up, using the grassroots army, a network of people who are going to get out there and get out the vote, chase ballots down in the election season, create call centers, make phone calls. That's the organization we need. That's the leadership we need. That's what we're going to bring to the state.
And so just to go off on what he just said, if you look at the vote count, if you look at the 2020 election with President Trump, I got it right here. He got approximately 2.6 million votes. Tudor Dixon got 1.9 million votes. So there's literally over 600,000 votes that we didn't get in this election cycle.
Yeah.
It's everything that Matt just hit on. Where was our program to go out and chase these votes?
Right.
People have all of this intention to go up and vote that day, but just like Matt hit on, people get busy, people forget, people get in the traffic, and those are the
disenfranchised,
votes. Disenfranchised. So literally, we have almost 700,000 votes that we didn't get, and that has a trickle-down effect from the person who's running the governor to the attorney general, to the secretary of state, even in local elections. Right. So that is what we need, is that organization to go out and not only excite these folks, to get them involved, but also during election time to get them to vote. We need to do basically what the Democrats do to us. They are organized. They're like carpenter ants. They fall right in line. They don't have all these different factions. It's time to unite underneath this one flag of unity. Yeah. And Matt and I are the people who are going to get it done.
And if we took my organization that we created in this last election, if we take Garrett's organization that he created in this last election, if we unite those factions within the grassroots, if we unite the establishment then with the grassroots and the grassroots with the establishment, if we have leadership that can meet with those organizations and those groups and tell and have a combining vision. The vision ultimately is to win elections, make Michigan great, make Michigan prosperous, create a constitutional republic here in Michigan that we haven't seen in years, a law and order state, bring businesses back to Michigan. If that's our vision and we can all unite under that vision, then we will go out and we will win elections. We will beat Democrats in 2 years. But we need the organization to do it. If we create, his organization and my organization, create a ballot chase program, we would have captured those 750,000 votes. We would have had a red wave in Michigan. We would have swept this state from the executive branch offices down through State House, State Senate, and continue into the school boards. We would have had a red wave. We would have won everything if we had leadership and organization. That's what we were lacking.
Yeah, and I think we, the party has to move forward, right? I mean, from my perspective, is messaging is such a big thing. Obviously, I own a branding company, and so we're all about the right brand, the right message, and the message of a lot of the candidates. This message of election integrity, and not that I'm saying that that's a wrong issue or a bad issue to look into, and something that obviously we want to have integrous elections 100%. We want to know that that's right. But that messaging, that being the primary focus of a lot of candidates, I think made a lot of people feel like I'm not even going to vote because why does my vote matter? And so I think messaging and having vision for the future, not looking back, knowing what's happened in the past and knowing that if I get into a position of leadership, I'm going to fix those issues. But if we continuously focus on the past and don't look to the future, we're going to constantly be getting beat. And that's my perspective. And so, my question is here, I know that you guys have a big announcement to make. I want to talk about that. Trump obviously made his big announcement that he's running for president again. And so I guess my question to you is, how are you guys going to help us, Michigan, as opposed to looking towards the past? How are you going to help us look to the future?
Well, from my perspective, no one has fought harder for election integrity over the last 2 years than I have. But right now, we have to look to the future because Proposal 2 passed.
Right.
The rules are different today than they were 3 weeks ago. They're
Right.
different today than they were 2 years ago. With Proposal 2 passing, we have to move into a different playing field into the next election. That's what Garrett and I are going to do. We have a vision as to how to do that. We're going to play within those rules that the Democrats have created, and we are going to beat them at their game. We are going to have a much bigger grassroots army than they could ever imagine, and we're going to dominate the next election in the 2 years.
I love it. I love hearing that.
And to be an effective leader, you have to adapt, improvise, and overcome. You have to constantly be in the state of evolution to stay ahead of the game. And the Democrats, unfortunately, have been 10 steps ahead of us. Mm-hmm. So it's now time to regroup. We need to get away from having 100 different leaders in the state of Michigan and all these different factions. We need to really come underneath this one umbrella of unity. And it doesn't matter if you're grassroots, if you're boots on the ground, if you're a social media warrior, or you're somebody that's writing the checks. Everybody has their place and what they need to do for us to unite. But we have to come underneath this umbrella. And with Matt leading the charge here, we're going to be able to do that. Right. And combining our organizations with our campaigns and all the other groups that we have mobilized over the past couple of years, I really feel that you're going to see what leadership can do with the right vision. And that's what we're going to bring to the table.
Good. So Trump made a big announcement, obviously. We knew he had been teasing for a while, a big announcement coming. It was the Tuesday after the election, I believe. And, everybody kind of assumed he's going to announce that he's running again. But after the midterms, nobody was sure. Is he going to do it? Because, of course, the media's message around the clock is Trump's the big loser, Trump's the big loser. Although, again, as we mentioned, if you look at the numbers, that's not really the case. But, people wondered, is he going to run? And, of course, he gave a speech, a very long speech, very different tone speech than he's used to giving, but announced that he's going to run for president in 2024. So I'd like to hear your guys' perspective on that, and what are your thoughts on Trump running again for president?
Well, anyone who wants to throw their hat in the ring and run, I think that's great. Donald Trump running for president is going to create a lot of media buzz, obviously. Many people still say he's the leader of the Republican Party, and I think that's great that he gets his vision out there and his message out there and organizes people and electrifies people. That's good for the Republican Party. Other people will also announce that they're running. From our perspective as leaders within Michigan and leaders of the Michigan Republican Party, our vision is to make sure that the candidates who are running in the primary are all running on a level playing field. They get resources that they need from the state party if they want to visit the state. But other than that, we're going to stay neutral until someone wins the primary, and then we're going to make sure that that person who wins the primary has the full support of the Michigan Republican Party, the financial backing that we can provide, and our grassroots army that's going to go out and electrify the base and make sure that we knock doors, drop literature, put out yard signs, make voter contact, and as we said, chase ballots. That's what we're going to do for the presidential candidate who wins the primary. That's our role, and I think it's a great vision to have.
Good.
And that's one thing too, like looking at the campaigns, what we're trying to grow here is not only a new vision, a new brand, but also an organization. It's a business. And we said it right from the very beginning when we announced, when we were running for governor, that, hey, I'm building an organization. I need business. We need fundraising. We need to activate and inspire Michigan's greatest asset, and that is the people to get involved and be able to do that and push out a narrative and get all those things that we need to bring to the table. We need to have a successful organization that makes money. And that is what we have to do, is we have to continue to fundraise. And we have witnessed this. There's been a lot of great people who have donated to the Michigan GOP in the past, and they fall into the wayside because they don't agree with the vision of where that party was going.
Right.
And so it's going to be our job to reignite those folks, to let them know what our vision is and what we bring to the table, and to build that successful organization. It takes money.
Yeah.
I said that from the very beginning. If you're not fundraising, you're dead in the water. Mm-hmm. You can have the biggest drum and beat that drum as loud as you can, but unless you have that financial backing, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to unite all walks of life. Again, like I said, I don't care if you're in a grassroots army, if you're contributing that way, a social media warrior, or you're writing those checks, any amount of checks.
Yeah.
And that's what we learned with our campaign, Tony, is those $20 donations a month add up to be big money.
Yeah.
And so we have to continue to inspire those folks, and to inspire them is to give them that vision.
Well, it is sad but true. I remember back in the beginning when you announced you were running for governor, and we had a team, and one of the things that the team said early on is, we got to fundraise. And I know you're like me, and you don't like asking people for money.
Not at all.
Especially, a lot of the people that supported your campaign, blue collar people that don't just have a mountain of cash, buried in their backyard. So for them to give $20 was a sacrifice. Some people to give $5, $1 was a sacrifice. So to ask them for that was a challenge, but we understood that Governor Whitmer was creating a war chest, and if we were going to compete with that, we had to have money. Not to pad your pockets, because that certainly didn't happen, but to get the message out.
Yeah.
It takes money to get the message out. You guys can have the greatest message in the world.
Yep.
And I like what I'm hearing, but if you don't have money to get that message in front of an audience besides who's watching today, the people who love you are watching right now.
Yep.
The people who support you are watching right now. But how do we get this message to the other people that would also probably love your message but haven't had a chance to hear it? And that's where money comes in. I think if you're watching and you've been involved this last 2 years and you're one of the people that's saying, oh, it's not about money, we don't need money, you're fooling yourself. Like, it absolutely is a part of it. It's not about anybody getting wealthy or padding anyone's pocket, because I can tell you firsthand that did not happen. It's about having the money to get the message out. If you watch the last 4 weeks of the statewide campaigns, Whitmer and Slotkin and all of the major races and Nessel were running ads to combat against the positive message that we had, and it was effective. They were able to get it out there.
That, you're exactly right. If you tell a lie long enough, people start to believe that it's true. So when you have a lie that you can push out with $37 million, and that's not even PAC money and everything else that she was getting, you can really control the narrative. I mean, look at even in the debates. Debates really didn't matter in this election.
Right.
Nessel wouldn't even debate Matt.
Right.
Tudor beat Whitmer hands down twice. Right? Even when we were debating in the primary, I really believe that I won 5 out of those 6 debates. It didn't matter.
Right.
It's all about messaging and what you can push out there, and you need money to do that.
And Governor Whitmer was on TV before the Republican primary. She was spending millions of dollars per week.
Oh, yeah.
Tudor Dixon, because of money, didn't get up on TV until mid-October. You cannot combat a constant barrage of negative ads from the Democrats starting prior to the primary, running for 6 to 8 weeks without a response. You cannot survive that ultimately, and that's what we saw in this election.
Yeah.
We needed donors to come out, support these campaigns. Instead, some of them stayed on the sidelines. We're going to change that. We've already been talking to them. We've already got commitments from some of these people that if Garrett and I win, they will help fund state party. We'll have the money that we need in 2 years to go up against the Democrats. That's because we have a vision, we have leadership, and we have a grassroots army already in place, an organization that nobody can compare with or compete against.
Yeah.
That is one of the most important things that Garrett and I want to tell everyone out there, that we are going to win this convention in February because we already have the organization in place to win, and we've already got financial backing and commitments from the establishment donors.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that the majority of people are not active like the grassroots army, where they're going to events, they're watching live videos, they're actively involved in the campaign. The majority of people are not that involved, and so they're getting most of their information from YouTube ads, from Facebook ads, from television commercials. And so that's why it's important that you guys want to raise money. And I know we're talking about big announcements here, Trump's big announcement, but I know you guys have a very big announcement to make. I know we've been teasing it a little bit so far, but I want you guys to take the opportunity and tell the audience listening, what is the big announcements you guys have been teasing for the last few days?
Well, not too long ago, I announced that I am running for chairmanship of the Michigan Republican Party. I have a vision as to where we want to take the party. We have a plan as to how we create leadership, how we put a plan in place, how we activate, mobilize, and inspire the grassroots network, and how we bring the grassroots to the establishment donors, and how we bring the establishment to the grassroots, how we unite under one umbrella. And I asked Garrett Soldano to run with me as co-chair of the party, and he has said he will do that.
He's accepted. All right.
I
Round
accepted.
of applause.
Yep. It goes back to the old saying: if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. And we were just in here 3 weeks ago talking about what
Right.
you and I were creating with the grassroots army to continue to keep these people inspired and motivated. And Matt gave me a call, and we went out and talked about it. I'm like, well, here we go again. So I really bought into everything that he's going to be bringing to the table, and I can definitely get behind someone with that vision. So, yeah, I accepted to be his co-chair.
Well, congratulations, guys. And literally 3 weeks ago, we were in here talking about what we were going to do just to kind of, and it was really about uniting the grassroots, but it had nothing to do with running for office. And Matt approached you, and I know you spent a lot of time in prayer and thought about that, and ultimately decided that this was the right thing for both of you guys to do, that you are the right men for our state. So I want to ask you to answer for the viewers, why you guys? Why are you two? You know, we said in the campaign, vote the O's, Soldano, DePerno, Carumbo, but now we get at least two of the three. Why are you guys the right guys for this position?
Well, number one, you gotta have the ability and the courage to recognize what went wrong in the last campaign. And like I said, I woke up on Wednesday morning. I said, listen, it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but ultimately the rules have changed now. Like I said, no one has fought harder for election integrity over the last 2 years than I have. But ultimately, we had to fight under the rules created by the Democrats. They were in charge. They've passed Proposal 2 now.
Yeah.
Those are the new rules. We're on a different playing field right now, and Garrett and I have put together a plan as to how we're going to go out, combat what the Democrats are doing under the now legal rules of Proposal 2. We're going to beat them at their own game. This is not about looking to the past. This is about looking to the future. How do we bring leadership to the state of Michigan? How do we create a structure within the MIGOP to help candidates? Because I've said what happened to me in the last election should never happen to another candidate again. every candidate that runs for office in the state of Michigan is going to have the full support of the MIGOP behind them. That's going to mean the staffing at the MIGOP. That's going to mean a get out the vote effort. That's going to mean a ballot chase program, and that's going to mean our grassroots army that we are going to activate and bring to those candidates to make sure they have the full support in 13 different district office call centers to make sure they have the support to get out their vote and win elections.
And I think, too, to piggyback on what he just said, is what better two people would you want to represent your party than people who just lived and breathed it over the last 2 to 3 years of fighting?
Yeah.
Who've seen the good and bad of an organization, who have built successful organizations. And so we will continue what I feel is to motivate and inspire Michigan and America's greatest asset, and that's the people. And so this is where they can get behind two people who have already been fighting for them and get behind a vision of what we're trying to create. And it's going to be an exciting time. We have lots of plans to keep these folks engaged and activated. And we're even talking about on the way here is thinking outside the box, is creating something to keep people energized. Why should we wait until the election year? Every year we should continue to unite and continue to attract and build this grassroots
Keep people
army.
engaged.
Keep people engaged. And this is a new political landscape now.
Yeah.
And together we're going to be blazing a trail. And when you blaze a trail, you're going to take arrows. And we both know that we're going to take arrows, but it's nothing new. We've been taking arrows for the past 3 years. But we are going to blaze this trail of unity, of hope, of inspiration. And everyone that doubted us, hated on us, attacked us, they're going to have to humbly follow. And that's going to create that ripple effect that I know and believe that can happen in the United States, is two ordinary Joes, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that's going to have a ripple effect throughout our country. And that's how we take back our country in 2024. But it has to start where it's always started, here in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
With two guys that weren't involved with politics, that actually care about the people and care about the state and care about this country. And again, you never know what small act that you may say or do that may change the lives of millions tomorrow. And that's the vision that we're going to create.
Yeah. And Garrett and I have always said, we're not politicians. We've never been politicians, even throughout these campaigns. We were statesmen at best. Garrett got involved in this back in the spring of 2020 when I got involved in a movement to fight against Whitmer's lockdowns.
Right.
Garrett created an organization.
Right.
I went out, I started talking to business leaders, talking to the Restaurant Association, talking to people who had been victimized by the governor when the state was shut down. And I went out and said, never shut down your business. These are unconstitutional orders. Stay open. We went out and fought for those people. That's what created our movements. It wasn't about us ever individually.
Right.
It was about saying that what is happening in the state is hurting people. Someone has to stand up and fight against that. That's what we've done now for 2.5 years. And we have a vision as to how to move forward, bring the state party into the current times, make sure that it is an organization that fights for our candidates, fight for our citizens and our voters and our grassroots people. That's the vision we have. That's what we're going to bring to the state of Michigan. We believe that in 2 years, everyone across this country is going to look to Michigan and say, how did they turn their state around? Well, it was two guys that stood up and said, we have a vision. We're not politicians. We're businessmen. We built organizations before. We're going to do it again, but we're going to do it in this context with the state party. We're going to make it a prosperous organization that goes out and fights for the people.
Well, I like what I hear, and I like that it's looking forward. You know, obviously, I've gotten to know you guys a lot over the last 2 years. I know for me, personally, not having anything to do with politics either, I'm also a businessman. I got involved because I believed in the message that Garrett was saying, but I remember being shocked that when we would go to events, GOP-hosted events, the disengagement of the GOP. I remember going to the debates up on Mackinac Island, and the chairman of the GOP sitting outside the tent in the back on his phone during the entirety of the debate. And I'm like, these four people up here, I don't know if it's 4 or 5, are potentially going to be the future leader of this party, you know, in the executive branch. And you're not listening. You don't know who's saying what. It's like he had already determined who he was going to run with or what. I don't know. I know the co-chair was certainly more involved than he was, Michonne. But did you get the same thing that they just were disengaged from your campaign, not offering assistance, not offering. They certainly didn't help Garrett's campaign, from my perspective, and I was really surprised by that because at that time he was one of the front runners in the race, and I thought we would see more support from the Michigan GOP. And from my perspective, it wasn't. Was that the case with your campaign as well?
Well, the MIGOP can only support its candidates to the extent that it raises money and has resources available to support those candidates. That's why I said earlier, typically we have 150 employees in the state of Michigan brought in by the RNC or the MIGOP that pays for those employees in 13 district offices that have call centers, that have get out the vote strategies. The MIGOP is handcuffed to the extent it doesn't raise money. And the reality is donors across this country lost faith in the MIGOP. They weren't donating money. They were diverting funds outside of the GOP directly to candidates. And we see, after the last election, we now know, and this is something we all should understand and recognize, this is the reality. When you ignore the top of the ticket, the entire ticket fails. That's why I said, what happened to me will never happen to another candidate when I'm chairman of the MIGOP.
And the biggest thing, too, that we have to realize is getting this younger generation excited. We're missing a whole, bowl of voters right now because they're just disconnected with the vision of the party.
Yeah.
And we need to go around and we have to excite these folks. We have to get them involved, and they have to see something that's fresh and exciting and new youth standing up. And that's how we win too, is getting that younger generation involved at the local level all the way up to the Michigan GOP and everything else. And we have a plan to do that.
And I refuse to concede in this last election that Michigan is a blue state.
Yeah.
I believe,
Not if you look at the map.
I believe, like I said, the red wave was here. We just didn't, as a party, bring it to our shores. We didn't do enough to inspire, mobilize, and activate our base to get out and vote. I believe we left 750,000 votes on the table because we didn't go out and knock on doors and get those votes. Yeah. We're going to do it in the next 2 years. The next election starts today. It doesn't start in a year from now. It starts today. We're already working on it. We will win this election in 2024.
And also, those 700,000 votes, what do you think that would have happened with Proposal 2?
Right.
Proposal 3?
Right.
It's a game changer.
Well, we've talked a lot about Proposal 2. You've mentioned it. And again, here goes to messaging, because the message that we heard on the media was very different from what was the actuality of Proposal 2 and Proposal 3 and Proposal 1. So why don't you give our listeners a little bit of an understanding of what Proposal 2 actually put into law?
Well, Proposal 2 allows for unlimited mail-in ballots, absentee ballots without any reason, no voter identification, ballot drop boxes in any locations that political parties want to put them, unlimited funding for those drop boxes, I mean, that's
all legal now.
All legal now.
Imagine putting those drop boxes in churches.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to beat them at their own game.
Yeah.
But we have to have the right leadership and organization and vision. And that's what Matt and I are going to bring to the table.
The Democrats have decided which Democrat communities got those drop boxes. We're going to change all that. In 2 years, when we play on their playground using the same rules that they've set forth, we are going to beat them so bad in 2024. We're going to have every Democrat standing up screaming election fraud. We're going to turn them into election deniers.
Election deniers.
It's going to be glorious.
Those conspiracy theorists.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, they gave us the letter Q, so we got to come up with a letter for them when they start being election deniers, right? The crazy people. Well, so I got to ask this then, Matt. I mean, I know you made your announcement last week, and I know you probably had a lot of people reach out to you and want to run with you as your co-chair. Why did you ultimately choose Garrett?
Because Garrett, in my view, is a man who can inspire people. He can bring unity. I've seen it when I was out campaigning with him. The crowds that he was drawing, the people he was talking to, the people who were donating to his campaign. This isn't about me or Garrett.
Right.
This is about moving Michigan forward and creating a group, a leadership group that can inspire and activate the grassroots army. Garrett's built a large network. I've built a large network. Imagine if we can combine those two networks across this state. We'll have over 60,000 volunteers ready to go next week who will be excited, who are going to be activated by our message. Like I said, the next election starts today. That's the message we're going to push out to our people. We're going to organize. We're going to inspire them, and Garrett is a perfect person to bring that message of unity and inspiration.
Well, again, obviously, I'm very pro Garrett. I like Garrett, and the times I've gotten to know you, I like your message as well, and I'm excited for you guys. But let's tell the audience a little bit how this works. So obviously, there's no election. Like, I can't go vote for DePerno Soldano for you guys to become the state chair and co-chair. So tell the audience how this works. What's going to happen over the next couple of months, and how would an average person that wanted you in that position, how would they let their voice be heard?
Well, this is a delegate convention that will happen the weekend after Valentine's Day in 2023. So I think candidates who want to throw their hat in the ring to be chairman and co-chair, I think the deadline to do that is December 2nd or December 5th. I don't remember the exact date, but they fill out an application, they get their name in, and then the election is very similar to the one I ran in April. It's just the limited class of Michigan Republican delegates who will be able to go to that convention.
How many delegates are there?
Right now, there's probably about almost 5,000. We've increased the number of delegates over the last 2 years. There's actually slots for about 14,000 delegates in this state. But unfortunately, this is another problem in Michigan. We haven't done enough as a party to activate people in the communities to come out and want to be delegates. We haven't given them the vision of what their duties would be, how they can help the party, and what the process is to become a delegate. So delegates are the lowest form of elected government that we have in the state of Michigan. Republicans have delegates, Democrats have delegates. So we'll have a delegate convention in third week of February. We know how to run conventions. I've run 2 conventions already. I've won both. And I'm going to tell you right now, no one can beat us in the next convention.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. So if somebody's listening and they want to be able, they can go sign up to be a precinct delegate?
They have to be elected to be a delegate
Okay.
in an August election. But right now, there's county conventions going on across the state right now.
There's one going on here.
People can show up at their county conventions and ask to be elevated to fill a slot that's open, as long as that slot is open in their precinct.
Yeah.
And then there will be another slew of county conventions, I think on January 26th. So prior to that time, Garrett and I and our team will be out contacting delegates across the state, making phone calls to them, making sure they get to convention in February when we will win this election.
And they have to be present. The delegates have to be present to vote. And so basically, someone that is not a delegate now, if they're pro Soldano, DePerno Soldano, they go talk to the precinct delegates in their area and say, these are the guys that we want. So we're asking you for you to vote for them, essentially. That's the best thing they probably can do as an average everyday citizen if they want that to happen.
Yeah, find out who your delegate is in your precinct. Every precinct delegate has assigned to them, I think it's about 3,000 voters in their neighborhood. That's what delegates do.
Right.
They reach out, they contact voters in their neighborhoods. They knock on doors, they drop literature, they spread yard signs, they get out the message to voters, they bring those voters to the polls. Like we said, imagine if we had 14,000 of those delegates across the state doing that work instead of just 4,000 or 5,000. We would make more voter contacts. We would raise more money. that's the goal. That's the vision. We're going to fill those slots. We're going to create hardworking Republicans across the state. We're going to motivate people, and we're going to win the next election.
And just to hit on that too is there's so much that people can do now. Just like Matt just stated, we're starting now. We're not waiting for 2023 to happen or 2024 or anything else. We're starting this campaign, this vision immediately. And so that's why when you and I talked several weeks ago, we were talking about and brainstorming, like, what can we do to bring people together? What can we bring people like nationwide to this kind of vision? And that's why we came up with this grassroots army. And that's why this Friday we're releasing our merchandise line, right? The T-shirts and sweatshirts and hats that we have created so people can be a part of something bigger than self.
Yeah.
And it's funny how God works and how this all kind of evolved, because you and I talked like, hey, let's give every, like, a portion of the proceeds, of the gross proceeds of what we're trying to do to grassroots causes and grassroots campaigns and organizations. That's how we're going to continue to give back. And so that's why this Friday, all of the merch that we sell, a portion of those gross sales are going to go to our run right now.
Support this.
And to support this. And then eventually to support the Michigan GOP, we need to get this army and this army of volunteers and these army of donations that are coming in, because look, folks, I said this during my run, $5 from 30,000 people, it adds up.
Yeah.
And that's why we can actually fund this organization. We can hire the staff, the much needed staff, to push out a message and a narrative in this vision. And that's how we do this.
Yeah.
Everybody is going to have to be involved. We can no longer just wait on the big dollar donors to come save us. It's going to be an all on deck, all hands on deck approach. And that's why we're going to get this thing done. And we're going to continue to activate and inspire people to get involved. And it starts right now.
Right. Well, and listen, I mean, buying a piece of merchandise, a shirt, a hat, a hoodie, it's just a great way to show that you're a part of something.
Unity.
It's a great way to show it. It's a great conversation starter. People ask you, what is the grassroots army? What is the grassroots org? It's a way to initiate conversation with people, and it's just a great way to support something local. And that's why, you and I, when we talked about this, we said it's very important that this is not just an entrepreneurial endeavor, although both of us are entrepreneurs at heart, Matt as well. And so we said this needs to be something more than that. And so we determined that if we're going to be doing this, that, like you said, a portion of all proceeds will go to support these grassroots efforts, these grassroots candidates, because we saw in these campaigns, and we've learned so many things. And I want to talk a minute here to take a reflect on some of the things you learned over the last 2 years that's going to help you going forward. But one of the things I saw is that so many of these great people that were running were just grossly underfunded, underutilized, underhelped, didn't know what resources to go to, didn't know who to turn to for this or for that. Even the simple things as filling out the paperwork that's involved, there was no one to help them, or at least they felt like there weren't. And so being able to do something that will help support those candidates when the time is right and support this campaign, I think is really exciting. So I want to ask you guys, certainly there's lessons along the road. I always ask guests that come on my podcast, what are some things you've learned over your journey? And it's specifically, though, the last 2 years, what are some things you guys have learned that's going to help you guys be the right leaders going forward for this party?
Well, unity is what we have to preach right now. And so, as you just said, we had candidates across the state, multiple candidates that didn't even make it on the ballot. They were kicked off the ballot by the Secretary of State because they didn't have their paperwork in order.
Right.
When candidates announce that they're running for office, why don't we send them a welcome packet so they understand what the rules are, what they have to do, what paperwork has to be filled out.
Right.
Let's help candidates do that. If we
Should
have
be a good thing if someone's running.
If we have funding, we can help candidates do that. But unity is the message that we have to spread right now. And any candidates that are out there or people who are thinking about running against us for this chairmanship, understand this. We are a big tent. We value everyone's opinion. We want everyone on board, understanding our message moving forward. There's no need to go forward with a contested convention in February when you can become part of the team now,
right,
and help push our message forward, because what we're trying to do here is going to help every single Republican in this state win elections. Let's unite right now. We are the two people who can do that, and I think that's the message. That's what I've learned over the last year and a half just running as a candidate is we need more people on our team, not less. We are stronger together. Every person we bring into our campaign helps us move our message forward. That's what we're asking everyone out there to do. Join us today. Go to my website, our website, DePerno4mi.com. Endorse us. There's a link to do that. Make a donation to help us win this campaign, and volunteer. Become part of the grassroots army.
Love it.
The biggest thing that I've always said is I was never going to lose myself throughout this process. I was going to be able to look at my creator, myself in the mirror, my wife and kids, and everybody in the eyes and say, Garrett did it to the best of his ability. Be yourself. Don't lose yourself, and if as long as you can do that, you're always going to make the right decisions moving forward and always do what's right. And Matt's right. I was too busy. You look back, I was too busy fighting amongst ourselves than even the Democratic Party. Like we were always trying to put out fires and rumors and everything else. And it's time to stop all that garbage, or hot garbage, as I say. And it's time to unite underneath this umbrella. And Matt's right. We need to have conversation. And we're not going to agree on everything, but we all can agree what we want best for the state of Michigan is to have great people in place to represent us. And that's what we're going to bring to the table. And so I don't care if you just want to sit back and write checks, or if you want to be involved in this grassroots army with boots on the ground, or if you want to be a social media warrior, or just having a conversation. You just never know what small act that you may say or do, or conversation that you may have that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. That's what this whole experience has taught me. Everybody has their place. And you can be rest assured that you have two guys right now that are going to represent you and do it for the right reasons, and something to get excited about and motivated about, and wake up every day with your butt on fire knowing that we're going to inspire positive change in not only the state of Michigan, but that ripple effect throughout our country. Yeah. And that's what you're getting with both of us right now.
Well, I think back, to the beginning of when I started getting involved, and it sounds like similar to you, 2020 really woke a lot of us up. Our governor here in the state did a lot of things that just were, wrong, unconstitutional. And a lot of us didn't smell right, but we didn't know what to say or do because we weren't sure if we were alone or if we were just the crazy people. And, then, that group started, that Michiganders Against Excessive Quarantine, where we realized, holy cow, there's a lot of people out there that think this way. So maybe I'm not crazy. And then, for me, I went to Operation Gridlock, and I saw thousands and thousands and thousands of cars and people that were so nice and friendly and kind, and all kind of just uniting under. And I went up and talked to a lot of people. They were telling us to stay in our cars, but didn't matter to me. I walked up. I have video footage, but talking to people and asking them. I mean, there were Democrats there that day. There were Republicans. There were independents. There was a unity under one cause. Like we all agree this is wrong. And I think over the last 2 years, we've seen like a lot of people, instead of trying to unite under the vision of what could be, or under the few things that the things that we know we agree on, the things that are important, some of these groups that I've encountered, or some of these people that I've encountered, they get so stuck on one issue, one small thing, and then we get divided. And we saw that in all of these campaigns that, whether it be the grassroots or conservatives in general, we can't just stay together. And maybe the candidate that you might have to vote for may not have every single thing down the line that you would want to check off every box, but are the big things there? Are the things that are most important there? Does having the right leaders in the right positions get us closer to the things that maybe we want in an ideal situation? We're so far removed from what we were as a country that to get back to that ideal place that you think we need, it's going to take time, and it's going to take steps, and it's going to take electing the right leaders, and it's going to take years and years, and winning in these small local elections, and getting precinct delegates active and involved, and getting the grassroots engaged and involved. It's going to take time. And, we have talked about, Garrett and I, like, we kind of swung for the fences, him running for governor. Like, I think you said it as, we tried out for the NFL and for a position in a game that we never even had played and almost won. And although, that was a big shot, there is such an importance and value to this local stuff and getting involved. If you really want to see positive change in your community, in your state, you have to get the right leadership involved. And so I think what I'm hearing from you guys today a lot is about vision, about the future and where you want to go. And to me, I think if you're listening, we got to unite behind this vision of what these guys will do to help conservative candidates. Maybe you're watching and you're considering running. And if you have these guys, you're going to have a GOP that's going to help you with that process. Maybe you know someone that should run or that is going to run next time. Then we'll have leadership that's going to help that person and help them get there. And so I think it's worth at least looking into, follow these guys, see what they're going on. But we got to stay united. We got to stay together. The Democrats stay together. They certainly don't all agree, but they stay together, and they're winning in a lot of places. And so if we're going to beat them, and we're going to restore the checks and balances, and we're going to restore our values, then it has to start by first getting some good leaders in there that are going to have vision. So I appreciate you guys coming on today. I appreciate you sharing this with you. We're excited. I'm excited about it. I don't know if everyone watches and excited, but they'll have the opportunity to get to know you guys. But before we go, if somebody's watching and they want to get to know this campaign or want to get to know you guys individually, a little bit more about you and what your campaign is going to be about, why don't you look into this camera over here and tell them where they can find you and find that information?
Yeah, and to your point, sometimes the best vision comes from people who haven't played the game before,
right?
Who have stood on the sidelines watching the game get played, and have said there wasn't a place for me, and
right.
That's where Garrett and I rose up in the spring of 2020, and started helping people get out. And actually, one of the first things I was doing across the state was recruiting people to run as delegates and run as school board candidates, because that's how you effectively make change in your state. So if you want to connect with us, DePerno4mi.com. That's the campaign website right now. Follow us on that. Follow us on social media, on Facebook, DePerno4mi. You can find that, or Twitter @MDePerno. Follow me there. That's where we're pushing out stuff about our campaign every single day. So join us. Become part of the Grassroots Army. And how you do that, Garrett will tell you how to be part of the Grassroots Army.
Yeah, and that's what we're building right now, and it's growing. I mean, last week in 5 days, we grew over 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And now it's over 11,000 people. So if you want to be a part of something bigger than self, then you can go on Facebook and follow us at the Grassroots Army, right? But also we're developing a web page. It's going to be up and ready to roll by Friday. And that's going to be called the grassrootsarmy.com, where you can get involved, you can buy merch, and wear this merch knowing and understanding that change is coming. It's going to be positive change and something that you can be a part of and something that you can be proud of. And that's what we're going with this thing, is we're building this army. And this army is going to grow into something very special. And then we're going to realize and know that what happens with the right leadership, ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And so follow us, get involved. And like I said, our store opens up on Friday. If you want to buy a Christmas present for someone, feel free to do that. But the portion of those proceeds will be going to back grassroots causes and ideas and campaigns. But initially, it's going to be supporting the next chair and co-chair of the Michigan GOP, Matt DePerno and I.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on the show today. And I know, for me and knowing you guys, and I know Garrett a lot more than I know Matt, but I've gotten to know Matt a lot over the last few years, that is, both of you initially got into this to help people. There was no self-interest involved. It was, you saw a problem, like you said, standing on the sidelines, like, this isn't right, and seeing how you could help people. And it evolved into this, and it's turned you guys into this, it's turned you into this place where you feel like you have to take action and move forward. And I know that the intentions are right. So I'll be the first one to say, I don't know if there has been an official, but I'm going to give my endorsement for DePerno Soldano for Michigan GOP chair and co-chair here publicly on my podcast. I'm going to endorse you guys. And I think that if you're listening, you should at least look into these guys and see why. I think they have the right vision for our state, the right vision for our party. I'm excited about it. Just so you know, our area, our county does have a slot open for precinct delegate. So as of January 5th, I will be officially a precinct delegate. So you'll have at least one vote. Got a long way to go, 5,000 more to go. But I'm supporting you guys, and I appreciate you guys coming on. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
And thank you all for watching. As my mother always said, you can't and never could until you tried. So go out there and try something great, my friends, and don't take the easy way out. We'll see you next time.